after giving them some treasures to send away the subordinates, then mysteriously disappeared. Until today, this secret, hidden for hundreds of years, has finally been discovered. Rocky didn't understand such a complex historical background. How did Officer Wu find out? Officer Wu immediately replied, "It is because of the white bone altar in the cave. There are detailed records about this matter. There, Shijin said he was in the Sahara Desert. What was the name of the ancient city we encountered?" Wu Baiyou knocked on his head a few times before he remembered. "Right. He calls that place Desert Wolf City, for the treasures exposed above the ground. There, Shijin believed it was the wolf-headed god Anubis, something used to exchange peace with oneself. So there, Shijin specializes in the cave. A highway to the underworld has been built, because he was convinced that this sea bone, in life, it was Anubis's concern. Therefore, a grand burial must be given." Uncle Lio laughed and said, "If there really is a wolf-headed god, Anubis, in this world, then why would he need to use treasure to negotiate peace with the outsiders? Long ago I led the army to defeat these powerless Russian nobles, eliminated by the Nile River. After learning about the origin of the treasure, the thought of the string becomes a tapestry of imagination. Wanbei village has such a vast treasure. It's just a small part of the Wolf City treasure. If I could withdraw all this wealth, what kind of concept will that be? Just thinking about it. The sausages are so juicy, they make your mouth water." After saying all this, Officer Wu took his leave, and after Rocky. Yet he continued to live with Uncle Lio and Chuenzi in the barber shop. Uncle Lio secretly told Chuenzi, "Yuo Kai is a true master in the deist sect, so never treat him as a petty thief." One day after this, Uncle Lio suddenly called Chuenzi over. "Tell him seriously. The Book of the Ceiling Door Mystery, from the perspective of the unknowable, it's only a beginner's technique. It's not that amazing. From today onwards, Uncle Lio plans to formally teach Chuenzi the true art of the palace. How meticulous is the hair-cutting technique passed down from our ancestors. Not only is there push-in, take out, press, pave, 6 techniques of hammering. There are 2 types of methods, the sharp path and the heart path. Giant Dao is just a regular haircut, and the heart's path is the cabinet maker executing the actions of Kun. Master Lio, who is skilled at kicking cherry heads for the dead. It's the craft of Xin Dao. Right now, Master Lio wants to pass on the 2 techniques of our sect. Kungxing technique and Yin Yang Feng Shui were passed on to Chuenzi. Let him choose one between the 2. This swayed back and forth, unable to make up its mind. "I don't know which one to choose." "Or choose both." Voki told him, "Yin Yang Feng Shui is easy to learn, but mastering it is extremely difficult. Why not learn the Kungxing technique first? Yin Yang and Feng Shui can be studied as an interest gradually." Chuenzi thought about it and found it very reasonable. "So in the end I chose the Kungxing technique." Not long after, Uncle Lio chose an auspicious day. Bai paid respects to the ancestor Yilo, deist of the barbering profession. Then he made Chuenzi bow and serve him tea. The master-apprentice ceremony is completed. Uncle Lio has just officially started teaching the art of hair shaving with a string. He told the string, 6 techniques of hair cutting. There are different interpretations between the methods of Giant Dao and Xin Dao. In the narrow path, pushing is back pushing. Take it gently. Digging is digging the ears. Press the shoulder. Shaving is shaving the head. The hammer strikes the waist. But in the heart's path, it is completely different. The push in the heart's path refers to pushing the soul, not just pushing the back. It should also be able to enhance the practitioner's essence, energy, and spirit. Let him be unsettled. Only then can we strike and sever its essence. The second method is to take. Na is also known as shuo. What to catch? Nature is capturing souls. Just now, the soul push separated the other person's soul. In the future, we must also bring his soul back. Otherwise, the practitioners will become soulless husks. Uncle Lio emphasized that the must be remembered. Soul walking is a craft. The barber must never use underhanded methods. Urging one to leave, the soul does not return. This is a great taboo. Say it again. To dig is to use a tool. The method of soul travel requires the use of certain magical tools, and these things cannot be seen by the practitioner. Otherwise, the magic will be lost. So, to put it simply, Tao is a form of sleight of hand, like performing magic tricks. Magic always reveals the truth in an instant, using the tactic of making a feint to the east while attacking in the west. Lure the audience to notice the mistakes. Before the barber uses the ritual tools to sever a person's vital blood, it is also necessary to divert the attention of the subject. Fourth method case. Actually, it is evil yin. Through the darkness. The soul walking technique must not be performed under the blazing sun, because most practitioners have their souls detached from their bodies, and the soul belongs to the shadow, exposed to the sun, can cause unpredictable harm to the practitioner. This must be avoided. There is also a fifth method of shaving, is to sever the yin method, waiting for the soul to leave the body. You can see the dark mark on the other person's body. At this point, Chuanzi couldn't help but ask, Uncle Lio previously mentioned the fortune-telling head. He still hasn't figured it out. Uncle Lio is not a deity either. A person with bad luck? Why would shaving your head bring good luck? Uncle Lio told him, no one in this world can change another person's fortune. If there really is such a capability, Uncle Lio is already the second Lai Ka-shing, the so-called wealth head. It's just a form of psychological comfort. Soul journey, to put it simply, by severing one's hair and blood, a shamanic method to change human metabolism. We can obstruct the flow of vital energy and blood. It can also invigorate the blood and stimulate the intestines. The former is Sion's head. The latter is the wealth-bringing head. Chuanzi suddenly realized. It's just a difference in whether it makes people feel good or not. It is impossible for Kai techniques to have an effect on the way of operation. Uncle Lio nodded in agreement. This is basically what it means. But soul travel is primarily a form of punishment. So the ways to hurt others. There are definitely more ways than just adjusting the body. But cutting off the dark hair is not as simple as shaving it away in one stroke. Specifically speaking, hair growth begins with the triple energizer. It is the dew meridian, bladder meridian, gallbladder meridian, and the Senjiao meridian. There are hundreds of acupuncture points distributed here. Every acupuncture point will have yin growing. Each segment will have a strong stimulating effect on the body. Speak up. Uncle Lio took out a book on human anatomy. Hand it over to Chuanzi. Remind him. The method of soul travel is complex yet intricate. After all, it involves 100 or 200 acupuncture points on the human body. But it's also simple. It's just about shaving the hair at the acupuncture points. For example, when someone gets scared, frequent urination and incontinence, that is the Hiyang acupoint area of the bladder meridian. Changjing point and Changshen point were stimulated. Just cut off its shadow, supplemented with silver needles. A moment will yield miraculous results. As they were speaking, Uncle Lio took out 3 silver needles from the box. It is called the true art of soul travel, must be used together with silver needles. Only when the dark hair is cut. Inserting the silver needle will yield the strongest effect. Otherwise, it would be useless. It can even be harmful to health. This is also the reason why modern acupuncture often fails to show efficacy. Today I listened to Uncle Lio's words. Only then did Chuanzi truly understand. The so-called yin hair. It's actually the layer of fuzz that grows on the human body. It is these fuzzy layers that obstruct the flow of blood, even the role of harming the economy. The soul walking technique is a method that works specifically on these fuzzy layers. Uncle Lio nodded in agreement and tell Chuanzi, the so-called prisoner. Actually, it's just our haircut target, not truly punished. The soul walking technique is merely a continuation of ancient teachings. Never consider yourself an executioner. I explained it clearly. Uncle Lio took out another knife, a specially made wooden disc razor for the Chuanzi. The handle of this knife is made of dark wood. The blade is a marrow-sucking knife forged from human bones. When Chuanzi heard this, immediately broke into a cold sweat. This razor is actually made of human bone. A seemingly ordinary razor. It is actually made from human bones. This is also a gift from Uncle Lio to Chuanzi for entering the industry. I heard this knife is made from human bones. Chuanzi was very surprised. But Uncle Lio told him, in their line of work of shaving heads, the marrow-sucking knife made from human bones is quite common. Human bones contain elements such as carbon and phosphorus. Forging magical tools must use human bones as the flame. It's not just a razor. In many temples and deist monasteries, objects used in rituals and exorcisms, it is also forged from human bones into flames. It's just that ordinary people don't know. Next, Uncle Lio must make Chuanzi understand the difference between the knife used in twilight and a razor. So he asked Chuanzi to extend his hand. Chuanzi listened and followed the instructions. Uncle Lio immediately opened his right hand that was stretched out towards the skewer, then pressed the knife against the palm of the skewer. Only the blade shaped by the scriptures is visible, clearly printed out dense tufts of fur, just like a microscope. Illuminate every single hair so thin that it is practically invisible. Does this razor have a magnifying effect? Uncle Lio told Chuanzi, just try more. In the future, more mysteries of the razor will be uncovered. Next, he wants Chuanzi to personally experience the specific effects of breaking the yin hair. So he acted swiftly and decisively. A light cut was made on the thumb of the string. At the same time as the blade descends, Uncle Lio explained, this location is Yuji Cave. It just temporarily cut off the circulation of the meridians and blood. Let Chuanzi experience the effect of broken yin hair. A moment later, Chuanzi felt his thumb start to tingle and swell, until unable to move. Immediately thereafter, Uncle Lio filled a basin with warm water again. Let Chuanzi soak his hands in warm water. The knife just now. Uncle Lio did not sever his dark hair roots. So just soak it in warm water. Blood can restore circulation. After the soaked his right hand in water, the sensation of numbness has indeed disappeared. He was simply amazed by this miraculous technique. Uncle Lio told Chuanzi, as long as I have this dark wood dagger, cutting off someone's hair is no longer a difficult task. But to proficiently wield the kungsing technique, it is also necessary to accurately identify the acupoints and remember the function of acupoints. That's why Uncle Lio let the string. You must memorize the Atlas, Renew, and Dinksu by heart. Otherwise, with one slash down, will leave no room for regret. faced with such magical techniques. As the research deepens, the benefits of Chuenzi's 6 techniques in Kungsin, I gradually understood many things. Apart from the ancestral rhythm and the fortune rhythm mentioned by Uncle Lio, Kungsin can temporarily enhance a person's physical abilities and can boost one's spirit and courage, become vigorous or lewd in a short time. It can even enhance the body's ability to withstand impacts or heightened sensory perception. Even more so, it can make one feel incredibly powerful, or the effects of secretly nurturing a crush. Of course, all of this is just temporary. Once the dark hair grows long, the effect will be lost if you rush. The fluff layer grows at an extremely fast rate. As soon as I entered, I asked, "Is Master Lio there? Have you heard of the enlightened head in the Kungsin tree? It's a method to help bald people regrow their hair. It's actually not that complicated. Just need to stimulate blood circulation in the scalp. Hair will definitely grow within 10 days. The girl heard about Master Lio from this barber shop. Can help people grow hair. That's why I came specially." As soon as I entered the door, she asked if Master Lio was there. It was said to be introduced by an acquaintance. Upon hearing this Chuenzi, it became clear that this girl was here to ask Master Lio to sever her yin hair. Just happened to catch Uncle Lio out on business, not in the shop. Chuenzi has been learning from Uncle Lio during this time the plan to practice breaking the shadow. In my heart, I've long been unable to endure. He then invited the girl into the private room, asked her what she needs. The girl took off her hat, revealing her bald head. She said she needs her hair to grow back completely. Money is not a problem. The faster, the better. Only her furry head was seen in the center. Ordered at 9, borrowed 8. The burned flesh has long shriveled and scabbed over. Clearly he is a monk. You can see her stylish outfit again. Everything is complete: earrings, red lips, and leather boots. It doesn't seem like a monk. Chuenzi couldn't help but ask, "Young woman, are you planning to return to secular life?" Kaio Need couldn't help but furrow her brow, said with annoyance, "Is it difficult for you here? Is there still a need for a reason?" Of course not. Chuenzi was about to explain, but was interrupted by a rebellious nun. "There's nothing to explain. As long as you can make my hair grow back, that's all that matters." Chuenzi expressed that he would do his best, just because the girl has a burned scar on her head from incense. Therefore, some hair growth techniques cannot be used directly. Just as I was saying, Chuenzi brought a basin of hot water. Place a hot towel on the girl's head. Chuenzi remembers what the book said. To open the crown, you only need to shave 3 acupoints with a water-absorbing knife. They are the temples. The first cut shaves the temple. The second cut carves a bamboo hole. But when the final knife strikes the vital point, Chuenzi felt a slight stir in his heart. At this moment, he only needs to move up a little bit. It is a mouth and a hole that can arouse desire. Once this young nun loses control, at that time won't it be up to me to pick? At this moment Chuenzi's cheeks were sweating. The knife in hand trembles slightly, thinking that this girl was already in his hands. At that time there will be no power to resist. Let's take advantage of the present moment. Upon thinking of this, Chuenzi was already sweating profusely with a sinister smile on his face. At that moment, Chuenzi was struck from behind. Immediately after that, saying this, he kicked the person out the door. At this moment, Chuenzi also looked regretful. How could I have thought that way just now? Before long, Chuenzi saw the girl from earlier, exiting the barber's shop, then quietly left. Suddenly, Uncle Lio's voice came from the room. Let Xuanzi come in and talk." Xuanzi was scared stiff. Then I went into the house to apologize to Uncle Lio. Uncle Lio asked him if he knew where he went wrong. Xuanzi answered hesitantly, "I shouldn't have harbored any unworthy thoughts." But Uncle Lio said it was wrong. Xuanzi was born without any ulterior motives, but rather the inner demon. Xuanzi was very surprised. "You said that the evil thought just now was a heart demon." Uncle Lio told him, "The inner demons are troubles that every practitioner will encounter. The power of magic far exceeds that of ordinary people. It's like a person only has power, but if not checked, his mindset will change. Ability is the key to unlocking desire. Powerful yet lacking self-control will inevitably become a monster, just like the previous Massachusetts. The reason he chose the wrong path. It is precisely because their abilities have strengthened. If one day, the string will also have this day." Uncle Lio stated that he would definitely not hold back. Xuanzi immediately assured Uncle Lio to not worry. "I vow that I will never stray into the path of evil and become a monster." Just then, the girl suddenly turned back and burst through the shop door, running while shouting, "Let Master Lio help her." Xuanzi and Uncle Lio were both confused, but the girl pointed outside and said, "They want to take me back." Following the direction the girl pointed, Xuanzi saw outside the glass door. A monk is standing nearby. Have you ever seen a monk catch a nun? A group of bald monks blocked the entrance of the barber shop. "I must go in and catch a little nun." Xuanzi couldn't stand this behavior. The young girl clearly doesn't want to go back. But these bald monks are out in broad daylight, openly trying to arrest someone. So Xuanzi went out alone to face it. Inquire why several monks have come. The middle-aged monk claimed his Dharma name was Wu Chen. The Panghuan Gifu seeks only a companion on the same path. Zhuang Xuanzi urged the other party to come out and return with them. The monk only said they were fellow travelers, but without saying whether it's a boy or a girl. It must be shameful to capture a nun. Then Xuanzi teased, "I said, Master Chef, you are a monk. How did they capture the nun?" The other party hesitated for a moment before responding. "He was entrusted by Master King Shui and Lion Zhen. Please bring this disciple back. So please be understanding, Shiju." Xuanzi felt that this remark was becoming increasingly unreasonable. The nun actually asked the monk to come out and catch someone. What kind of reasoning is this? It could end up being a few fraudsters. The fake monk of the lustful woman. Thinking of this, Xuanzi's attitude became firm. "This girl has already said she doesn't want to go back with you. You have no right to forcibly take someone away." The middle-aged monk heard these words, said with some displeasure, "Your words are mistaken, benefactor. How can the disciples of the Buddhist path come and go as they please?" The words were not finished. Xuanzi suddenly interrupted him. "You really think I don't understand?" Xuanzi told his son that it was not reasonable. No need to say more. The deeply rooted disciples went inside to capture the young nun Jingxin. Xuanzi immediately blocked the doorway. "What are you doing?" A monk actually dared to break into a private residence, just as a few monks were about to force their way in. Suddenly, Rocky's voice came from not far away, nigh and Bazuin's eye. "Everyone, let's take off the hats. The nun is afraid. What are you all planning to do? Listen to this sound." Several monks immediately stopped their hands. The middle-aged monk looked at Luoki with mild surprise. "May I ask who this benefactor is?" Rocky introduces himself, claiming to be Dongbutu. Then I came down to the door. "I can't stand such fright from a few of you. It would be better for a few masters to take a step back first. He will come to talk to the young girl. It's better to persuade her to go back." The monk, upon hearing this, stopped pretending. He spoke in a tone typical of the martial world. "If you really came down from Don Putu, let's not interfere with each other. Why do you want to block it?" Rocky smiled without changing his expression, claiming this as his plate. "I hope you all don't force it." But the great monk was relentless. "It is said that there are their people in the palace." Rocky is not unaware of the rules of the martial world. "But that doesn't mean you have to carry a basket." Carrying a basket means being loyal to the party. He just hopes that these few won't force their way in. No, let him in to persuade him, and then bring him out. The monk pondered for a moment. "I think I can give him this space." So I waited at the door. As soon as I entered the room, Chuenzi suggested calling the police. He just doesn't believe that these few monks aren't afraid of the police. But the prophecy says, these people are not fake monks, but a monk who repairs temples, although not a monk from an ancient temple. But indeed, a temple was built to worship the Bodhisattva, although this is a way to amass wealth, yet also cultivate goodness in this life. Offering incense. The stringers can't catch them red-handed. Chuenzi felt a bit resentful. "Are we really going to hand the person over like this?" At this moment Rocky spoke up. He saw the young nun crying incessantly, like a pear blossom in the rain. Curiosity arose in her heart. "Speaking of which, you little girl have already entered the temple. Why do these monks want to capture you and take you back?" Upon hearing this, the little girl immediately cried out in distress. "They forced me to marry her." The three couldn't help but ask, "Who to marry?" The girl answered with tear-filled eyes, "Payson." The information is clear. He is referring to the abbot of Kingshan Temple. Chuenzi was greatly shocked. "Are you referring to the most renowned enlightened monk of Linquen Temple?" This delicate and charming young nun was unexpectedly forced into marriage by an old monk. Moreover, this old monk is not an ordinary person. It turns out to be the abbot of Kingshan Temple, Haitian. Chuenzi was taken aback. Kingshan Temple is the largest temple in Linquen Temple. It is said that inside the temple there is a Maitreya Buddha statue with moving eyes. From then on, it became famous far and wide for its incense offerings. The abbot Haitian is a well-known monk and esteemed figure in the area. Such an enlightened monk actually wants to secretly marry a wife. Uncle Laios said that Kingshan Temple belongs to the Haitian family, because since the anti-Japanese war years, Grandpa Hazen founded Kingshan Temple 60 years ago. Hazen is the third generation abbot of the temple. Uncle Laios' grandfather had a few encounters with Hazen's grandfather. This person once traveled to Nanyang, returning to Linquen Temple after closing the sand opened in Nanyang. Many people do not understand his actions, but the old man told Uncle Laios' grandfather about this matter. The reason for doing this: it is because he obtained a fire-eyed bronze Buddha. Rocky had heard of this fire-eyed copper Buddha. It is said that this copper comes from the island of immortals. Vajrapani came to this island before attaining Buddhahood, created 3 statues of Maitreya Buddha using supernatural powers. The Buddha statue's eyes can move because it is attached to the Buddha's essence. As long as people sincerely worship, everything comes with a request. Uncle Laio agreed that Rocky was right. That is why Master Haitian devoted his life savings to build Kingshan Temple. And during the anti-Japanese war, he called upon patriotic heroes to form civilian guerrilla squads, repel the invading pirates. Later, the war of resistance against Japan was victorious. Jiang Huaiyuan personally awarded him the plaque for the anti-Japanese hero Fo Fa Gauda. Xuanzi has been to Kingshan Temple, but he never saw the copper Buddha with moving eyes inside. Uncle Lio explained. The fire-eye bronze Buddha is the treasured relic of King Tian Temple. It is also a calling card for Lingquan Temple. Nature is not something everyone can see. Uncle Lio finished speaking and turned to look at the young nun. For now, I will just call you Miss. Master Hazen is the symbol of Lingquan Temple. You say that such a high monk of world civilization wants to marry you. Did I hear that correctly? The young nun affirmed repeatedly. You heard it right. It is this Haitian who wants to marry me. He even wanted to. The words are not yet finished. Zio Nizi's face was already flushed. Xuanzi angrily scolded Haitian. What a hypocritical bald donkey. But now the monks under Haitian are surrounding the temple door, waiting for Uncle Lio and the others to send the people out. If it saves time for the string to let go, the most important thing right now is to find a way to solve the problem. The girl said firmly that he would not go back. I would never go back. But this situation is really hard to deal with. If a direct conflict occurs with the monk from Kingshan at this moment, no one, from officials to common people, will stand on Uncle Lio's side. But these monks clearly have ill intentions. If we just send the little nun into the tiger's den like this, isn't it just aiding the tyrant in his evil deeds? Uncle Lio said, no one would believe the little girl's words, unless Hazen admits it himself. But the young nun insisted that she was not lying. Hazen is really a lecher. It's not just him. The nun's temple had a sister who was somewhat good-looking. No one can escape from Captain Haitian. He couldn't take it anymore and ran out. At this point, the young nun was trembling with fear. Uncle Lio also wanted to help her. It's just that this matter is really difficult to get involved in. Uncle Lio hadn't finished speaking. Suddenly, a flash of fluorescence appeared. The little nun pulled out a dagger from somewhere. Press against your own throat. Claims he would rather die here. He also did not want to return with those monks. The girl finished speaking. He immediately pressed the dagger tightly against his neck. Preparing to slit my throat for suicide. Pay attention. This girl is about to commit suicide by cutting her throat. But the next second, the dagger in her hand suddenly vanished. Only a handful of grease is left. Such a swift knife-stealing technique. Only the deist master Luokai can achieve this. He was toying with it. The dagger just snatched from the girl's hand. Let him speak nicely. After all, they are a person of the Buddhist community. Do not forget the thought of taking life. I will accept this knife. After saying this, Rocky grabbed the discarded dagger in mid-air. In an instant, I spread my hands again. The dagger had mysteriously vanished. Xuanzi was astonished by Rocky's earlier technique. I thought this guy moved really fast. In the blink of an eye, could actually stuff a lump of fat into the girl's palm, and lubricated with oil. Easily took away the dagger. This person is indeed extraordinary. No wonder Uncle Lio told him not to underestimate Luokai. The girl was also startled by the recent outburst. At present, there is no solution. I can only sit in the chair and cry silently. Uncle Lio pondered for a moment. Ask this young lady, who introduced her, to come here. The girl is being pressured into marriage by the abbot Haitian of Kingshan Temple. That's why I escaped to this place. I didn't expect Hazen's men to chase us here. Facing Uncle Lio's question, the little girl did not dare to answer, because she was afraid that once she said it, instead it will harm others. The monk outside was clearly losing his patience. Uncle Lio saw this and slowly walked to the door. Xuanzi and Luoki had no idea how Uncle Lio wanted to resolve it. Uncle Lio opened the door. He spoke to the monk outside the door. "Several masters have come from afar. Neglect and misunderstanding." But the monk squinted his eyes. "Let Master Lyo no longer say polite words. Just hand over that little nun. Otherwise, so don't blame them for taking matters into their own hands." As soon as these words were spoken, a few sand bandits surrounded the monk, but did not approach him. Chuenzi and Yuoki both exclaimed that it was bad news. But Uncle Lyo suddenly made a strange gesture. The monk was taken aback by the gesture. He raised his hand to signal the sand followers behind him to stop. Master Lyo's hands emitted a strange glow. The monk inquired, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Uncle Lyo replied succinctly, "I am sure." The monk no longer spoke much, immediately turned around and left with his subordinates. Watch these monks walk further away. Chuenzi couldn't help but ask, how did Uncle Lyo scare off these evil monks with just a gesture? Uncle Lyo chuckled. "Justice lies in the hearts of the people. After all, they are monks, robbing a girl right under the bright sunlight. If this gets out, it won't sound good. Uncle Lyo used this to make them reconsider and back down. This gesture is a type of Buddhist mudra. It means a wake-up call." After saying this, Uncle Lyo said it was getting late. "It's time for dinner. Let Chuenzi go buy some good food. Calm the little nun in the room." Before long, Chuenzi bought a table full of burgers and cola. Everyone was about to dig in, but found that the young nun was sitting alone, fidgeting and not coming to eat. Chuenzi asked her what was wrong. The little nun hesitantly said she didn't want to eat these. Chuenzi knows she is a nun. He even specially bought her some vegetarian food, but the young nun still did not eat, saying, "I'm really not hungry. Let Chuenzi and the others eat first." Uncle Lyo was not being polite either. The sound of grabbing a hamburger and taking a bite. Unintentionally, the young nun swallowed. Clearly, this is a reaction caused by hunger. At that moment, Uncle Lyo handed her a glass of iced cola. "If you don't eat, it's always okay to have some cola." The girl thanked Uncle Lyo and took the cola. In a moment, he drank it all down. After the meal, Uncle Lyo said he was going out with Rocky to take care of some business. "Make sure to take good care of the little nun. Beware of the monks who come and go." Chuenzi felt that Uncle Lyo was indeed overthinking. But there was a chance to be alone with the beautiful nun, just as Chuenzi wished. After Uncle Lyo left, Chuenzi began to unleash his silver tongue, strenuously flaunting his energy and his pitiful sense of humor. The girl laughed out loud. Later on, Uncle Lyo and Rocky also didn't know what to deal with. "It's very late, and he still hasn't come back." So Chuenzi arranged for the little nun to rest in his room for the night. He thought the weather might turn cool tonight, so I planned to help the little nun get more blankets. Little did he expect to take the blanket. The moment the door was pushed open, suddenly I witnessed a horrifying scene. The boy pushed open the door and was met with a bizarre scene. Only the little nun sat alone in the room. The neck stretched long, like a giant horse. The head swayed in the air. The boy has encountered a few monsters and spirits, but I've truly never seen anyone look like this in my life. Looking at this long neck, Chuenzi didn't find it very scary. It looks more like those inflatable figures dancing in the wind at the entrance of a supermarket. Thinking of this, Chuenzi almost burst out laughing. At that moment, he really wanted to reach out and touch that seemingly soft neck. Unexpectedly, Uncle Lyo suddenly grabbed my wrist, pulling me close to stop me. Looking at the long-necked nun in front of me, Uncle Lyo pulled out a white gauze. With a flick of the hand, He threw the gauze around the nun's neck. Then Uncle Lio took out a string of copper bells. It quietly hung around the nun's neck. Then a wave of bells rang out with a crisp sound. The nun was suddenly startled. "Open your eyes and relax," looking down from a high vantage point at Uncle Lio and Shuenzi. The nun's expression suddenly became anxious. She reached out to touch the scarf around her neck. But as soon as my finger touched the brass bell, then a series of tinkling sounds were heard. The copper bell immediately tightened around the neck. The nun's face showed a look of pain. Breathing became difficult. Uncle Lio explained, "This is called the Kai circle. Only the correct solution can set you free. Otherwise, every time the bell rings, the copper bell will tighten in 2 minutes." The nun dared not move recklessly, lowered my head to plead with Uncle Lio. "Master, I cannot hide my ignorance of Mount Tai. I stumbled into your territory. Please let me off the hook." Uncle Lio didn't intend to do anything to her. "I just want her to speak honestly. This time I came to their shop to find her and shave her head to return to secular life. What is it all for?" At this point, the young nun seems to have some unspoken troubles. Uncle Lio placed his hand on the bell. The young nun quickly said nervously upon seeing this situation, "She really isn't a bad person." But Uncle Lio was still unwilling to give up. "Since there's nothing to hide in my heart, why hide it deliberately? Be honest and reveal everything. I guarantee your safety." The little nun felt a bit skeptical. Can Uncle Lio really keep her safe? In fact, she also really wanted to reveal the truth. "But I'm afraid that once I say it, it will drag everyone down and bring trouble upon us." Uncle Lio listened to these words. With a slight smile, she said, "In your eyes, Fatu Man is a very evil sorcery, isn't it? But your current skills, it's just that the neck has become a bit longer. Want to achieve decapitation. The journey through the dark night is still far from complete. So don't worry about our safety. What you should worry about the most is actually yourself." Hearing Uncle Lio's words, the nun was at a loss for words. Can only lower my brows and shed tears, recalling the past experiences. She was destined to be a tragic person from the moment she was born. Abandoned by my parents at the front of a nunnery since I was little, no matter if she is willing or not. But from that time on, she became a nun. She grew up under the care of her master and senior sister. For many years, it's been simple tea and plain meals with the quiet lamp and ancient Buddha. Her childhood was nothing short of a nightmare. Later, a senior sister asked her if she wanted to return to secular life. The little nun doesn't have much wisdom. As soon as I heard that I could return to secular life, extremely happy. But senior sister made a request to her. To renounce the monastic life, one must learn a secret technique. The name of this secret technique is called Deep Three Flower Points. Have you heard of Fatu Man? It was a branch of the Southern Islands voodoo magic. The practitioner first experiences a lengthening of the neck. Then the soul entered the bird's body. Finally, the head can be detached, with both ears exposed. Traveling through the world in the night, absorbing the essence of yin energy, it can undoubtedly be said to be witchcraft. The little nun in front of me is practicing this technique. The little nun has been alone and orphaned since childhood, grew up in Entang with the soft light of ancient Buddhas. Later, one day, a senior sister suddenly asked her if she wanted to renounce her vows. The young nun believed she had no wisdom. One can return to secular life upon hearing. Extremely happy. But the senior sister immediately made a request. "If you want to return to secular life, you must learn a secret art." Her explanation is, "A Buddhist gathering. This secret skill is a means of survival given to disciples by the Bodhisattva, but if the truth is revealed to outsiders, you will suffer severe consequences. I don't know what it means to be from a different sect. Senior sister said, this secret technique is called deep into the three flowers on the giant peak. It is a secret technique for changing one's fortune. Upon hearing this, Uncle Lio frowned deeply. Deep into the three-flower giant peak. However, in this life, Liuo Hanjai Gong's elder practices in the Buddhist mystical palace. Don't say that this secret art doesn't exist in the world, even if it is true. With the ability of a young nun, it is also difficult to successfully cultivate. Uncle Lio was certain. The young nun practices a unique skill. The nun was startled to the extreme upon hearing this. As a giant, she truly didn't know this was sorcery. The senior sister never talked to her. Uncle Lio shook his head helplessly after hearing this. Then she immediately took it off. The sand gold and copper bells entwined around the nun's neck. She finally knows about mage hazen. Why do they want to capture this nun? She must have seen the flaw in this. Fortunately, Uncle Lio just now, there was no argument with the people from Kingshan Temple. Otherwise, it will be a big problem. The nun has calmed down now. She didn't understand how Uncle Lio discovered that she possessed demonic powers. Uncle Lio replied, because the snake you just ate was raised by me. The nun was extremely surprised. That snake is actually yours. Chuenzi is a bit bewildering. Lio Shu, when did you start raising snakes? Uncle Lio told Chuenzi. She and Rocky are considered fellow disciples. Nuoki raises snakes. She will naturally take care of it. But the animals raised by such people, ordinary people would never be able to discover it. And this girl not only discovered, they even regarded it as a wild snake that insulted human habitation. Finally, the snake was swallowed as food. Uncle Lio asked Chuenzi to buy food. It was just to test her, because cultivating demon magic requires consuming raw flesh. So we've confirmed the first step. We need to figure out what kind of sorcery she is practicing. There is a method in Maoshan technique to seek out demons, called Duan Yao grass. Such things require both seduction and enchantment to be effective. However, the released entity is a demon, not a human. Once the demon consumes the demon-ending herb, it will reveal its true form in a state of unconsciousness. From this, it can be understood the secret technique she has cultivated. The young nun listened. She immediately knelt down, indicating that she knew she was wrong. If I had known this earlier, she would never cultivate such a demonic art. Please, Master Lio, save her. Uncle Lio thought for a moment. He said to the little nun, if you can believe me, the best solution right now. Let's go find Master Hazen. He studies Buddhist teachings. Must be able to break the demon's spell. Some things are beyond your wishes. Master Haitian won't make things difficult for you. But the young nun was determined not to go, even if it means going to die. She will never stand in front of that bastard again. Uncle Lio was puzzled. What is this little girl really about? Such aversion towards Kingshan. Is it possible that you still want to say something now? Mage Hazen insisted on marrying her. However, the young nun firmly stated she didn't speak a word of nonsense. Previously, the Kingshui temple where she was located, every 7 years a sister-in-law will be sent, entering Kingshan temple, but as long as you go in, the person will never come out again. No one dared to ask the reason behind it. But 1 year, the young nun inadvertently discovered this secret. And this is a very frightening secret. Pay attention. The 2 monks sat quietly in the middle of the night, carrying a mummified corpse. And this horrifying scene Just then a little nun hiding in the corner stumbled upon them. She trembled in fear. Not long ago, Jingyi, the senior sister of the little nun, chosen as a solitary monk, sent to Kingshan Temple, because this is the tradition of King Shuian. One is elected every 7 years. According to Andang's words, these ants were sent away, accept the enlightenment of Master Hazen. Then it will be sent to various famous mountains and ancient temples. Continue to study the profound teachings of Buddhism. It was originally a good thing. However, there is something strange about it. Because everyone sent inside, she never came out again, although very curious. But no one dared to question the reasoning behind it. At that time, among all the senior sisters, Sister Jingyi is the best to the little nun. So before leaving, the little nun followed behind Sister Jingyi. Until the very end, I saw with my own eyes. She walked into Kingshan Temple. 3 days later, the little nun suddenly had a stomachache. When she came out of the toilet in the middle of the night, the limbs have long since become soft and powerless, sitting on the ground to rest. The young nun was so frightened by this scene that she couldn't move, and the young nun was moved away from the underground. 2 nuns who tended the vegetable garden came over, digging a pit in the cover of night. At this moment, the young nun was already in tears from fear, thinking that these people killed senior Sister Jingyi. Now it's time to destroy the evidence. But soon the young nun realized the 2 people are not digging a pit, but instead unearthed a dark purple large urn buried beneath the vegetable garden. A nun lifted the lid. The young nun clearly saw inside. It was piled high with eerie white bones. At this moment I just learned that the senior sisters who went to Kingshan Temple, not missing at all, but was buried in a large jar underground under the vegetables. Chuenzi felt extremely indignant upon hearing this. Why didn't the little nun call the police at that time? The young nun said, their temple is built deep in the mountains. There are no mobile phones on the mountain. The senior sisters are very strict during weekdays. She never had the chance to call the police. I never expected that today, 7 years later, she was also chosen as a solitary monk. There are diners around me being guarded. Don't even mention making a phone call. It's hard to even talk to people. So this time she made up her mind. Finally, while senior sister was asleep, sneaked out quietly. After escaping, the little nun really considered calling the police, but was constantly pursued by the monks of Kingshansi, so there was no time to call the police. Uncle Lio spoke to her at this moment. How did you end up here? Where did you hear about her again? The young nun said, she learned from the casual chats of her senior sisters. I heard about Master Lio's. They say Master Lio has a way. Let the shaved head grow hair. Can also help change one's fortune. Also said to find Lio Shifu in the future to replace the ordination head, living a normal woman's life. So the young nun kept it in her heart. At this moment, the melody of the string instrument was already sweet. It is claimed that this is clearly a serial murder case. I suggest we call Officer Wu immediately to report it. Just as I was saying, Officer Wu's call came in. Officer Wu immediately brought up notice of commendation regarding the last treasure hunt case, in addition to honorary citizens and outstanding individuals. There is also a lifetime free admission pass for the Lincoln City Museum. In addition, there is a bonus of 1,000 yuan for each person. 3 people, that is 3,000 yuan. When Chuenzi heard this, my insides are about to burst. The treasure's in the cave. Just scrape off some powder. It's not just 3,000 yuan, okay? However, Officer Wu then mentioned another matter. They say Massachusetts has awakened. Furthermore, They specifically requested to see Chuenzi. I've never seen such a bizarre old woman, not only talking to the ceiling every day, and he always emits a foul stench. Officer Wu can be 100% sure. That is the smell of decay from a rotting corpse. The prison hospital couldn't find any issues. Moreover, the most bizarre thing is, she always comes at midnight. Just kneel by the bed on time, facing east, completely still, until 3 o'clock in the early morning. Only then will I continue to lie down and sleep. There is no clock in the prison infirmary, but her timing was always spot on, almost without a second's difference. Since the last time I was arrested and imprisoned, Maharishi has been in a coma for several days. Upon waking, they explicitly requested to see Chuenzi. They say there is an important case being revealed. Officer Wu immediately brought Chuenzi and Master Liao take to the prison hospital. Along the way, Chuenzi was still worried. Mesheng might be looking for a chance to take revenge on her. But Uncle Liao said that on the night of the arrest in Massachusetts, she wounded the soul of Massachusetts with a silver needle. This wicked woman has long exhausted the evil skills she cultivated over the years. Became an old man on the verge of death, like a candle flickering in the wind. There is no threat at all to Chuenzi. Uncle Liao also said the stench of the corpse on Massachusetts. It might be because she drank too much human blood earlier, causing the internal organs to be invaded by corrupted blood. This is also called the countertide. It's like a person eating garlic. Pores can emit a smell like garlic. This indicates that she can no longer control the energy within her body. Chuenzi asked again, "So why does she kneel in worship in the dead of night?" Uncle Liao explained that there have been too many lives harmed by such people in Massachusetts. So it's easy to attract wandering spirits. At this point, he asked if Chuenzi had noticed anything. The inner chamber of this prison is designed in a Bagua shape. Chuenzi looked around. It turns out to be true. Officer Wu also realized this point after hearing those words. He has been here hundreds of times. If it weren't for Master Liao bringing it up today, he could never notice this. In Uncle Liao's view, this uniquely shaped building has appeared. There is only one reason. It must be that this place is not peaceful. Therefore, Massachusetts' actions must have been influenced. As Officer Wu opened the prison gate, a sense of confusion lingered in my heart. Huo, what temptation could there be? Uncle Liao asked her if she had been distracted. It's that kind of inexplicable staring at a place for a long time. My mind is a blank. After regaining composure, I could even startle myself by zoning out, Officer Wu stated after completing the registration. She often zones out. Uncle Liao told her, daydreaming often is not a good thing. The reason people are lost in thought. It was precisely because the two eyes happened to meet the gaze of the shadow spirit. Yinling is just a wandering spirit passing by. If your eyes meet hers, will be easily tempted. The lightweight is stunned. The heavier ones may display some inexplicable actions. Officer Wu was still somewhat puzzled. If Ma Yinhua was truly deceived, so why do we repeat the same actions every day? Since the ghost is a wandering spirit, different spirits should have different ways of seduction. Uncle Liao stated that this precisely illustrates. Every night in the prison hospital, it is the same ghost that haunts Ma Yinhua. Officer Wu was almost dizzied from Uncle Liao. Uncle Liao clearly said that the shadow spirit is a wandering soul. Why is it said to be the same evil spirit again? Uncle Liao explained. The reasoning behind this is actually very simple. Mr. Feng Shui, designer for prison decoration. In fact, he is just a second rate. The key issue lies precisely in the design of this prison hospital. Have you ever seen a building with such a Gothic shape? In Feng Shui, this type of architecture can ward off evil and harm. Wherever it is, it signifies that the place must be troubled. Lincoln City's second prison features this architectural style. Master Liu discovered this as soon as he arrived. He also noticed the Feng Shui master who designed the decorations for the prison. Actually, he's just a second-rate player, because this person only knows that the gossiping inner servants can ward off evil and drive away misfortune. But little did they know before sealing the bricks here. First, we should cast a spell to drive away the wandering spirits in the area. Otherwise, when the final step is completed, this Baowa Feng Shui setup will become both twisted and perilous. The wandering souls outside cannot enter. The spirits inside cannot escape either. So this prison actually traps quite a few evil spirits. Prisoner Ma Yinhua kneels towards the east at midnight every day. I didn't go back to sleep until 3 a.m. Uncle Liu speculated that he must have been affected. The temptation of a certain ghost trapped in prison. That's why there is such strange behavior. Chuanzi couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. In this way, this prison hospital isn't open for casual visits. It's simply too dangerous. But Uncle Liu said, the prison is filled with wicked people. Even ghosts fear wicked people. So one can encounter ghosts that are not afraid of evil people and even dare to deceive them. Absolutely cannot treat it lightly. Upon hearing this, Officer Wu became a bit flustered. After all, this is also the territory of the police station. Are we really going to practice spells in prison? But even if Officer Wu agrees, the other heads in the prison won't agree either. Uncle Liu felt it was best to set it aside for now. The most urgent thing right now is to find out what Ma Yinhua is looking for with Chuanzi. Since Ma Yinhua was last arrested and imprisoned, she has remained in a coma. Was to look around in confusion. It specifically names and requests to meet Chuanzi alone. The prisoner has now arrived at the cell door. Officer Wu Liang knows that Ma Yinhua wouldn't dare to pull any tricks. Uncle Liu was not worried about Ma Yinhua, because his cultivation has been wasted. Even if one wants to take revenge, they are powerless to do so. What he was more worried about was the spirit in the room. Upon hearing this, Chuanzi suddenly hesitated about whether to go in. But Officer Wu said, since you've come here, we must complete this task. Even if the connection is made, there is only a door separating them. There's nothing to be afraid of. We've talked about it to this extent. The string can only be faced head-on. Just consider it a contribution to the people. Zhang Zi mustered his courage and pushed the door into the prison infirmary. As soon as I entered the door, Chuanzi noticed the damp, unpleasant smell radiating from Ma Shen. The room was pitch black. Ma Shen lay on the hospital bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The eyeballs are dark yellow and filled with blood vessels. It hasn't been long since we last met. Ma Shen has changed so much. Not only did my hair fall out, even the entire face became distorted, the pale features in the dark room. It appeared exceptionally eerie and terrifying. Chuanzi once again mustered up the courage to move forward. Perhaps it was the sound of footsteps. Ma Shen lay in bed without moving his head. The eyes turned towards the direction of the string, and revealed a faint, powerless, eerie smile. You have arrived. Chuanzi questioned why they were looking for him. Ma Shen suddenly laughed out loud. Actually, it's nothing much. I just want to see you. I want to see how well you're doing. Chuanzi felt a bit annoyed upon hearing this. I'm not as free as you are. If you're fine, then I'll leave. But Ma Shen said, if you leave, you will regret it for a lifetime. If you don't believe me, let's make a bet." At this moment, Chuenzi could no longer endure it. "Just say what you want to say. Don't beat around the bush. Having done so many atrocious things, just be human once before you die." In fact, Ma Shen brought Chuenzi over for this reason. He wants to do a good deed before he dies. He wants to tell Chuenzi the village's secret. Their village is very unsettled, except for his white day longevity. There is still a late-night snack. The true identity of this late-night snack is— the words are not yet spoken. The electronic watch in Chuenzi's pocket suddenly beeped at the hour. Meanwhile, Ma Shen suddenly turned over in bed, facing the "I bow down in worship." At that moment, Chuenzi saw a terrifying ghostly figure in Ma Shen's murky pupils. Pay attention. In the old woman's eyes, there was actually a shadow of a red-faced ghost. But there are clearly only Chuenzi and him in the room. Just as Chuenzi was about to step forward to take a closer look, Ma Shen's eyes suddenly closed. Chuenzi was sure he wasn't seeing things. Just now, a red-faced ghost appeared in Ma Shen's eyes. At this moment, Chuenzi is in a dark prison cell. Suddenly, he felt a chill enveloping him. In an instant, my whole body trembled. The strangely behaving old jade. A room filled with a chilling aura. The fleeting shadow of a ghost. This is enough to prove that there is something strange here. Chuenzi did not dare to linger any longer, opened the door and walked out of the cell. Officer Wu and Master Lio have been waiting outside. Seeing the string come out, Officer Wu then asked, "Is the horse Yinhua starting again in the room?" During this time, prisoner Ma Yinhua kneels facing the east every night at midnight, and stayed completely still until 3 in the morning. Uncle Lio asked about them. What did Ma Shen say to him? At this moment, Chuenzi trembled with fear. Ma Shen's words were not finished yet. He just told Chuenzi, "In their village, besides daytime meals, there are also nighttime snacks. The owl is also known as the night snack." But what Ma Shen referred to as a midnight snack shouldn't be an owl. Uncle Lio confirmed it was definitely not an owl. Bai Rai Shu is a person by day, night of the demons. The night snack is a creature that exists between day and night. The power of night snacks is much greater than that of daytime meals. Actually, when they first discovered the secret path where Ma Shen practiced, seeing the bones inside the bright stone, Uncle Lio is a bit strange. The ability of a person on the platform. It's very hard to kill so many animals and babies. I didn't expect there was truly another monster. Officer Wu was taken aback to hear there were other supernatural beings. Just let Uncle Lio quickly find this person. Otherwise, more innocent villagers will definitely be harmed. Late night snack. He just looked into Ma Shen's eyes. I saw the reflection of a red-faced person in blue attire. Chuenzi insisted that he definitely did not see wrong. There must be something dirty in this room. Uncle Lio was stunned by the words from the kid. What kind of reflection did Chuenzi see? Is the shadow facing up or down? The string should be facing up. But he thought this seemed somewhat illogical. From the perspective of the principle of image projection in physics, the reflection of a person seen through others' eyes. It should be the opposite of reality, so that shadow should have its head facing down. At this moment, Uncle Lio can confidently tell Officer Wu, they have big trouble in this prison. The prison warden will definitely agree. Doing magic here. Officer Wu did not understand. Did Master Lio find a reason to persuade the prison just based on Ma Yinghua's strange appearance? It is still the ghostly shadow reflected in his eyes. Uncle Lio told him it was all untrue. I want the prison warden to agree to do it the magical way. This doesn't require them to speak at all. Officer Wu just needs to let the people in the prison just do an arm ultrasound for Ma Yinghua. Officer Wu naturally obeyed Uncle Lio's words. Immediately went to find the prison warden to coordinate this matter. Before long, the prison medical staff rushed over at night, overtime to perform a laparoscopic arm ultrasound for Ma Yinghua. He squeezed out the adhesive, applying it on the emaciated waist and abdomen of Massachusetts. I rolled the perspective lens back and forth a few times, looking up at the display in the instrument. Suddenly witnessed a bizarre scene. He repeatedly confirmed whether the machine had malfunctioned, but the more he checked, the more uneasy he felt inside. Finally, I heard on the hospital bed a chilling laughter. The doctor couldn't take it anymore. Suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Rushed out of the medical room, running while shouting, "It's haunted! It's haunted!" Officer Wu asked the doctor what happened. The doctor anxiously pointed at the Massachusetts inside the room. "He is a dead man." Chuenzi and Wubea were both very confused. "Ask Uncle Lio what exactly is going on." Uncle Lio told them. The abdomen of the Massachusetts region no longer contains complete internal organs. At this moment, his stomach was filled with a pool of rotten flesh. It's come to this. Yet people still live on. Any doctor would be scared in this situation. In other words, the current Massachusetts has long been dead. Have you heard of ghost control over corpses? A usual ghost possessing a living person is called fusion. Possessing a dead body is called corpse control. It's also called controlling the body. In fact, there is no fundamental difference between the two. They are all lost and despondent. Body controlled by a ghost. The main difference is that a living person's body does not decay. The internal organs of a corpse will decay. Currently, the prisoner Ma Yinhua is just like this. The organs in his belly had long rutted into a pool of rotten flesh, but on the surface they still live like walking corpses. Uncle Lio noticed this for a reason. It was precisely because Chuenzi was previously in the eyes of Massachusetts. I saw a ghostly figure with its head facing up. The eyes of the dead are also called glass beads. It can only serve to reflect images. So the figure in his eyes. Otherwise, it should come from the opposite direction. Uncle Lio thought the smell in Massachusetts was putrid. It was caused by the countertide of blood. It seems that's not the case now. The toxins inside him are rotting. Clearly, it's a ghost controlling the corpse. So Massachusetts has actually been dead for a long time. Before the voice fades away, Deputy Warden Louding hurriedly rushed over. He just received the message. The doctor is examining Ma Yinhua. He discovered that all the organs in his belly had rotted. According to their observations, Ma Yinhua has been taking medicine, drinking water, and eating these days. There are no obvious changes, so no special examination was done. I don't know why this happened today. It seems I heard the deputy director's question. A faintly mysterious smile appeared on his face. Chuenzi saw this scene through the monitor. Startled immediately, Officer Wu recounted what Uncle Lio had said earlier, then conveyed it again to the deputy director. The deputy director was left dumbfounded. Such a thing really exists in the world. How should we handle such a situation? Did you report to your superiors that the prison is haunted? Uncle Lio felt that if he remembered correctly, this prison was built in the 1990s. So I asked Director Deng, is it still possible to find the engineer who was responsible for the design back then? Director Deng pondered for a moment. Although it may take some effort, but give him 2 days, and he will definitely find it. Master Lio asked if half a day is okay. If too much time drags on, There might be unforeseen changes. Director Ding gritted his teeth. After finishing speaking, he ran to make a phone call to find someone. Officer Wu was curious about what Master Liu would do after finding this person. Uncle Liu explained. The heroic spirit has been trapped in a Bagua Feng Shui drama for decades, filled with resentment long ago, acting rashly without understanding the situation. I'm just afraid it might backfire. At that moment, the electronic watch in Chuenzi's pocket chimed precisely on time. Unknowingly, it's already 3 in the morning. The hemp rope in the room indeed lay down on time. Chuenzi remembered that the words of Ma Sheng were not finished. So I plan to go in and ask again. Uncle Liu reminded Chuenzi. The current hemp rope is not him, so what he said cannot be judged by common sense. If you notice something is wrong, get out quickly. Chuenzi nodded in agreement, and with a nervous heart stepped into the room again. As Chuenzi sat at the edge of the hemp rope bed, he also took a special look at the eye of the hemp rope. I found that the previous red-faced ghost was no longer there. At that moment, Ma Sheng also turned his eyes towards him. Chuenzi asks about the hemp rope. Who exactly was that late-night snack he mentioned earlier? But the hemp rope proposed a condition at that moment, as long as Chuenzi takes him out. He helped Chuenzi find a late-night snack. Qi Chuenzi is not foolish either. Isn't this just wanting Chuenzi to help him escape from prison? It's absolutely impossible. But the hemp rope explained that the string did not understand his meaning. The reason for letting Chuenzi take him out of prison, it was just to take them to identify the hiding place of the late-night snacks. The police even take the suspect to identify the crime scene. This is not an unreasonable request. Once he catches the midnight snack, he will return to prison. Now he is just an old man in the twilight of his years. He once caused the deaths of so many children. Even after leaving prison, there is no benefit for him either. That being said, what reason does Kay have to believe that there are late-night snacks in the village? Upon hearing this, the hemp rope smiled. He asked Chuenzi if he still remembered the corpse receiving in on the waste of Qinglong Mountain. Just move the 2 yaksha statues at the inn's entrance. The string will naturally know. Qi Chuenzi does not understand. Why does the hemp rope want to help him? The hemp rope said this isn't helping them, but rather helping oneself. If he hadn't encountered this late-night snack back then, there wouldn't be such an outcome today. So the hemp rope hates him. I want to perish together with him. Before the voice faded, the hemp rope let out a strange laugh again. The words of the hemp rope were flawless. So Chuenzi informed Uncle Liu and Officer Wu of the results. Uncle Liu emphasized, this is not the requirement of the hemp rope, but rather the request of the red-faced ghost. But this is too strange. How did this red-faced ghost know there was a midnight snack hidden in the village? Why take the initiative to lead them in capturing the night snack? Uncle Liu didn't quite believe what the other person was saying. It's better to be cautious. In short, let's go to the corpse transporter's inn on Qinglong Mountain. Let's wait until we see it before making plans. So the 3 of them headed to Qinglong Mountain under the cover of night. When I reached halfway up the mountain, Chuenzi suddenly heard a noise in the bushes by the mountain road. In the moment of turning to shine the flashlight over, a figure suddenly dashed out from the bushes, covered in blood red. A monster with a gaping, blood-soaked mouth. Howling, it pounced towards the string. How frightening mice used to be! The tomb raider suddenly sprang out from the bushes. He is being chased by the rat spirit. Officer Wu was startled by the tomb raiders. Subconsciously kicked him. Then he said uncertainly, "Is this touch human?" At this moment, the tomb raider shouted in panic, There are iron claws in the grave. We all found a way. My face, my face. At this moment, a mouse stealthily climbed onto the shoulder of the tomb raider. It directly burrowed into his mouth. Officer Wu immediately rushed forward to grab the mouse by its tail. But it was too late. The mouse actually crawled into the thief's throat and bit through his windpipe. Officer Wu immediately shouted angrily, "Come out here!" The next second, Officer Wu suddenly yanked the mouse out with force. The tomb raider had already lost his breath. At that moment, the mouse turned in mid-air to look at Officer Wu, suddenly opened its bloody maw. With a soft thud, the mouse actually bit off its own tail. Xuanzi felt a cold sweat breaking out. I've never seen such a strange mouse. Surprisingly understands how to survive by shedding its tail. At that moment, Master Lio, who arrived late, said, "The iron claws are the zombie's hand claws. If that tomb raider really encounters a zombie, so tonight we must not enter the mountains. Let's wait until dawn to talk." Then they turned and left with Xuanzi. Arrived at the guest house at the foot of the mountain for the night, Master Lio immediately lit 2 incense sticks. A stick inserted at the doorway. Another one is stuck outside the door. Officer Wu couldn't understand Lio Fan's intentions. Master Lio said very seriously, "I need to know if anything followed us back. This is the incense that ghosts love the most. Ghosts are sure to come drawn by the scent. When the ghost stands above the incense offering, the smoke will be shrouded by the form of the ghost. No longer affected by the airflow, it instead rises upward." At this point, Master Lio thought of that tomb raider. Qinglong Mountain is not suitable for building a grave at all. Whose grave are they actually digging? The 3 of them discussed for half the day, but had no clue at all. At that moment, Xuanzi suddenly stood up and looked towards the door. Yet the incense smoke rises upward. Xuanzi quickly called out, "Uncle Lio." However, Master Lio raised a finger and spoke softly, whispered softly outside the door, "Look closely." Xuanzi immediately looked in that direction. Outside the house, countless pairs of white lights stood densely. Xuanzi and Officer Wu were horrified to discover that it was a group of mice. As a buzzing sound came from outside the door, the rat swarm scattered in response. The fragrant incense smoke began to sway with the wind. Clearly, the ghost that hovered over the incense offering has departed. At this moment, Master Lio sighed. "Really interesting. The rat actually came to challenge me." Xuanzi exclaimed, "Has this rat become a spirit?" Little did anyone know, Master Lio said to himself, "This is called reaping what you sow." Xuanzi thought Master Lio was talking about grave robbers. What Master Lio said was actually Liu Hua Shen. Liu Hua and Shen Zheng set up the feng shui arrangement for the subway back then, the one who disrupted the flow of Qinglong Mountain. Even the string of fate nearly met its end because of this. Xuanzi does not understand. What connection does this woman have with the rat? It turns out that Liu Hua's departed soul is now being frightened and driven by mice. Master Lio said, "If the skeleton of that giant python is still on Qinglong Mountain, how can a rat become a demon and do evil?" The next day the 3 entered the mountain again, soon arrived at the entrance of the corpse delivery inn. According to what the god of hemp said, as long as we move these 2 yaksha statues in front of the door, it will naturally prove the existence of late-night snacks. Then the 3 of them worked together to move the yaksha statue. Beneath the stone statue lies a pitch-black cave. Only thick black mist was seen swirling around. Suddenly, the air currents surged violently. Master Lio was suddenly startled. quickly pulled on Chuenzi and Officer Wu's collar to retreat. In an instant, the night demon was enveloped by black mist. It was as if a yasha had come back to life. Officer Wu felt a lingering fear, but he thought it was poison gas. Master Lyo said this is the moisture accumulated in the cave. Once it's all dispersed, there will be no problem. Half an hour later, the humidity finally dissipated. Officer Wu turned on his flashlight and aimed it at the cave, peeking in together with Chuenzi. I never expected to witness a horrifying scene. Yet they saw a person looking up at them. I have never seen such a terrifying sight. In the dark, oily cave, a man smiling up at the sky, covered all over with dense black-haired rats. Officer Wu shone his flashlight. The black mass of mice scattered in all directions like a tide. However, an even more terrifying scene unfolded. The man in the cave, except for his head, the entire body was gnawed clean by the rats. Only a white skeletal frame remains. The three of them were all shocked. The random strings are simply unbearable. Running a few steps, I leaned against a big tree, gasping for breath. At this moment, Officer Wu came to his senses, also clicking their tongues in amazement. This scene is simply terrifying. These rats are probably not ordinary rats. Uncle Lyo nodded in agreement. These black-furred rats are very cunning, because he often sneaked into the chicken coop to steal eggs. So they are also called night thieves. It's the first time I've heard of a rat stealing eggs. Ubayo couldn't help but feel a bit curious about this. Uncle Lyo explained. Night thieves often work in pairs, sneaking into the chicken coop under the cover of night. Find the hatching basin. A mouse lies on its back, holding the egg still. The other mouse was dragging its tail. Drag the bomb mouse away as a transport vehicle. In fact, this type of rat is very timid. When they see people, they run away in an instant. So very few people know there are still these types of mice in the world. Uncle Lyo looked into the cave again. Is this the late night snack that Ma Shen mentioned? At that moment, Uncle Lyo suddenly smelled a terrible stench from behind. Following the scent forward, in the nearby thicket, discovered a sacred altar. At the center of the altar, an old green ox with half of its body has been inserted into the mud. In front of the ox head, there is a censer and offerings placed. Upon closer inspection, this is a dead cow. Flies buzz chaotically above the cow's back. The incense ash swirled a little. This explains that it is a ritual for tomb robbers to pay homage to the mountain spirit, Xingdan Zan. This cow is a tribute to the mountain spirit. Officer Wu didn't understand. If the cow is a tribute, why do we need to insert it into the soil? Uncle Lyo told him. Because the mountain spirits here live underground. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably those rats. Tomb raiders pay respects with incense burned on site. Bungli Dong Vang. It means if you only burn incense, burning right on the grave. If offering tribute for the ritual, then it's located to the east of the grave. Most tomb raiders usually burn incense, holding such a grand fire ceremony to worship the mountain. Describe these tomb raiders. I have long known that there are not only ancient tombs in Qinglong Mountain. There are also the mountain beasts that guard the tomb. At this point, Uncle Lyo has taken out the yin-yang compass. While determining the direction, he continued speaking. Mountain spirits love to build their nests in graves. Because most ancient tombs are deep underground, dark and quiet, the environment is favored by the mountain spirits. So we entered the tomb, in addition to dealing with the hidden traps and mechanisms. We also have to deal with the mountain spirits and wild beasts that use ancient tombs as their lairs. Hearing what Uncle Lyo said, Officer Wu finally understood. These tomb raiders clearly put in a futile effort, although they bribed the mountain spirit, but it didn't have any effect. Still became the meal of the mountain spirit. At this moment, Uncle Lio's compass needle suddenly stopped. Following the direction of the pointer, the three arrived at the west side of the corpse transporting inn. As expected, they unexpectedly discovered a cave here. Next to the cave entrance, there were a few pieces of clothing discarded by the tomb raiders. Officer Wu found a wallet in his pocket. There are also one person's ID card and driver's license inside. Every tomb raider must have a lookout. Uncle Lio estimated this lookout person. Perhaps the horrific scene in the cave scared it away. At that moment, Officer Wu's phone suddenly rang. It was Director Ding who called. They found the designer who built the Chengjian prison back then. But this person has long been dead, and before dying, the person is already mentally unstable. Had long-term treatment at the 4th Psychiatric Hospital. After hanging up the phone, Officer Wu felt the past of the second prison, destined to become a mystery case. Uncle Lio couldn't help but sigh. Everything that is forced to be obtained is never truly yours. Since the truth cannot be obtained, this is where it ends. But right now, the matter of Qinglong Mountain absolutely cannot let the police get involved. Otherwise, it could result in casualties among Officer Wu Wai's team. Afterwards, the three drove back to Lincoln City's second prison. It was already midnight when I saw Massachusetts again. At this moment, Massachusetts remained kneeling on the bed, motionless, until 3 o'clock in the deep night. Uncle Lio followed Chuenzi into the house. Massachusetts turned his back to the two. He doesn't want to see anyone other than Chuenzi. Let Uncle Lio go out now. But Uncle Lio asked directly, "What you mean by late night snack is actually nightfall, right? In Qinglong Mountain, there is a black-furred rat king. You are the one who follows him to cultivate the demon arts." I was right, wasn't I? Upon hearing this, Massachusetts actually twisted its entire head to the back, smiled strangely. "How did you know?" "Pay attention." The old woman's head actually turned backward. This is the ghost manipulator. Massachusetts has long been dead. It is the spirit controlling the corpse of Massachusetts. The spirit no longer hides, just because of a word from Master Lio. What you call a midnight snack is actually night arrival, the black-furred rat king in Qinglong Mountain. You are the one who followed him to practice the demon arts. I wasn't wrong, was I? Yingling suddenly felt surprised. At that moment, remaining still, the head turned to look at Master Lio. This is the secret of Massachusetts. Why does Lio Fan know? Master Lio continued. That black-furred rat, causing havoc in Qinglong Mountain. Being too high profile doesn't last long, and Massachusetts wishes to perish together with the midnight snack. It seems it can be accomplished without your involvement. At this point, Master Lio had already sat down opposite the spirit. You want to go through the bodies of Massachusetts. Escape from this bog of feng shui layout. As soon as the words were spoken, the spirit strangely began to laugh, because Master Lio cannot completely eliminate it. The spirits sought another way to escape this feng shui trap. Lio Shifu's family will be in chaos. As soon as these words were spoken, Massachusetts has turned into a skeleton. It turns out that after the spirit leaves the body, this matter will quickly rot. The smell of decay spread throughout the entire room. Master Lio and Chuenzi quickly left here. Now, the heavily sinful Beja Shuma province faces retribution. The mysterious late-night snack also reveals its identity. Back at the barber shop, Master Lio went out to prepare for the unexpected. Ki however, spends his days doing nothing. At that moment, the young nun Jingxian suddenly said to Chuenzi, "Master Liao asked the skewers to come over for a moment. When will Uncle Liao be back?" Chuenzi felt a bit confused. The door can be opened, but Master Liao is nowhere to be seen. Chuenzi then turned to ask Jingxian, "Where is Uncle Liao?" But I didn't expect that. Jingxian unexpectedly waved her hand, slapping the mist onto Chuenzi's face. Chuenzi immediately lost control and fell backward. What was even more unusual was that Jingxian was actually holding a mask. Apply it to the skewer's face. A moment later, the entire face of Chuenzi unexpectedly transformed into Jingxian's appearance. Even a red-haired person has become bald. Otherwise, Jingxian took out another mask. Apply it to your own face. Then, surprisingly, she put on a red wig. Then Jingxian disguised herself as a servant. He even used women's clothes to change into. Jingxian then put on the stringed clothes and dragged the string to the steps outside the door. Chuenzi was extremely puzzled. What does Jingxian want to do? Otherwise, a car will stop not far away. Chuenzi saw the monk from Qingxinsi getting off and walking towards him. Chuenzi suddenly recalled Jingxian's ordeal with fear. 7 years ago, Jingxian accidentally discovered her senior sister had turned into a mummy. Now she has been chosen as a solitary monk guest by Satan Temple. Jingxian strives to escape the fate of becoming a mummified corpse. She actually wants Chuenzi to take her place and be taken away. It must be Jingxian who disguised herself and colluded with the monk. Qi Chuenzi was paralyzed by the hypnotic smoke, cannot even speak. They could only let the monk take the string to a room in Qingshan Temple. Little did she know, the monk simply placed her in a chair. He turned around and left. Chuenzi couldn't help but think, what do they really want to do with the troublemaker? Not long after, an old monk suddenly pushed open the door. He is Master Haitian, the abbot of Qingshan Temple. He didn't suspect the string. Yet they keep saying that the living Buddha's teachings should not be taken lightly. Still speaking of the bitter sea of the mortal world. Only by meeting the living Buddha do we realize the vastness of the Buddhist path. I hope Master Jingxian can forgive any rudeness on my part. After saying this, he had the monks outside escort the beads to see the living Buddha. Upon hearing this, Chuenzi immediately recalled the long-standing legend of Qingshan Temple and the fiery eyes of the Buddha. It's just a statue of a Buddha. What can be seen? But soon several monks arrived at a cave with a string of beads. Entering the cave turned out to be a deep tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, there is a doorway. A figure can be faintly seen within the portal. After entering the portal, the monk actually left the string behind, immediately turned and left. The skewer feels stuffy. I can only look at the blazing eyes of the Buddha before me. There was a golden Maitreya Buddha statue sitting on the offering platform. Suddenly, Chuenzi sensed something unusual. Unable to hold back, sweat poured down. The eyes of the statue unexpectedly turned to look. It really is the fire eye. The eyeballs can move like Buddha. Thinking of this, Chuenzi recalled Jingxian's observations and experiences. Can the Buddha really turn a person into a dried corpse? At that moment, a rustling sound interrupted the train of thoughts. Looking down, it turned out to be a mouse climbing up the dark table. Just as the mouse was about to nibble on the apple, Guo Yan Tongfo picked up the candle, smashed the mouse into a pulp. But he wore a bright smile, like a gentle spring breeze. Please pay attention. This golden, shining Buddha. Not only can the eyeballs move, moreover, the methods are quite ruthless. A mouse climbed onto the altar. He actually picked up a red bamboo stick. He was killed with a single blow. The audience noticed this, stunned into silence. This Buddha statue is actually alive. Could it really be the legendary living Buddha? At this moment, Chuenzi had been disguised as a woman. My hands and feet can't move because I took the pills. But the mind is still very sharp. This statue of the Buddha is definitely not a living Buddha. The legendary Maitreya Buddha, his position among the Buddhas of the West is second only to that of the Tathagata. Such a Buddha endowed with great wisdom and compassion. How could one possibly kill a living being with their own hands? At this thought, voices of two young monks came from behind the Buddhist hall. They discovered that it was the Buddha who had opened the sand sword. Not only was there no surprise, instead it has become quite familiar. Suddenly, the two of them came before the skewer, speaking lightly to the disguised person in women's clothing. This girl is really hard to catch. It took several days. It finally came. She looks quite lively. It just bumped a little. Speaking of which, Huo Yan seemed like a sloth to the Buddha, slowly stretched out its golden, chubby hand, just about to grab the apple on the table. The young monk turned around and saw, quickly stepped forward and moved the plate aside. Oh my living Buddha! Eating some apple peels will let you produce a big bowl of sound. We can't handle your appetite. Let's not say more. After saying this, he pointed at the string of beads again. Hasn't this girl arrived? It's enough for you to digest for a while. Upon hearing the word digestion, Chuenzi was greatly shocked. Is this living Buddha going to eat him? Two young monks pushed the string in front of the Buddha with fiery eyes. He turned around and returned to the back hall. Before leaving, I wish the living Buddha a good appetite this time. At this moment, Chuenzi felt utterly hopeless. Only he and the fiery-eyed Buddha remained in the grand hall. The Maitreya Buddha smiled broadly at the string of beads. His gaze was filled with strangeness and malice. After a moment of eye contact, the living Buddha slowly shifted his body, crawling down the arched table at a very slow pace. It might be because of being too fat. 3 minutes later, he finally crawled to the ground, standing in front of Chuenzi, after panting for another 3 minutes. Chuenzi was left speechless by his funny antics. The living Buddha gradually leaned his face closer. The child tightly closed his eyes. Is this really happening? Will he eat the nose first or the mouth first? Little did I expect the lama's chubby face. Stopped before encountering the string, then took a deep breath towards the string. The suction is as strong as a raging storm. The mask on Chuenzi's face was about to be sucked off. Chuenzi tightly closed his eyes. I don't understand what this guy is really into. Not much time left. The suction suddenly stopped. The living Buddha in front of me was panting heavily. Chuenzi suddenly realized. This, if not considered devouring others. Perhaps it is a kind of disrespect. He is a big man. Could it be that someone is going to take advantage of me like this? Thinking of this, the anger rose from the heart. He stood up with a sudden push. Suddenly, Chuenzi realized he could move. I guess I'm going to laugh myself to tears. Since that's the case, Chuenzi immediately lifted his leg. A strong kick landed on Tonfo's stomach. Eat shit, you. A sudden loud sound. Chuenzi felt like he had kicked solid reinforced concrete. The tremor left his feet numb. At this moment, Chuenzi's eyes were filled with cold tears from the pain. I don't understand what's going on. Knocked on the top of the child Buddha's head. Is this person made of stone all over? The skewed fate of the string. Continuous heavy punches delivered. But Tonfo's body remained as hard as iron. Chuenzi then had a change of heart. I heard that chubby people are all ticklish. He scratched with both hands. The little Buddha truly smiled wide and dark. At this moment, suddenly, footsteps came from the back hall. The little novice pulled aside the curtain. "Come to deliver food to the living Buddha." At this moment, Chuenzi had already sat back down in the chair. "Continue to pretend I can't move him." The two young monks found it very strange as well. Put it in the past. The girl who was seduced by the Buddha. It should have already become a corpse. Ki Chuenzi is still alive. Chuenzi finally realized. The fat man just now was not harassing her, but was instead consuming his mandarin ducks. At this time, two young monks, carrying a bucket of steaming pork lard dumpling soup, arriving before the living Buddha. They both stepped on the stool directly. Someone wrapped a blanket around the living Buddha. Another person held a funnel to the living Buddha's mouth, suddenly scooped up a ladle of steaming hot dumpling soup, poured it directly into the funnel, poured into the mouth of the living Buddha. Seeing this, Chuenzi thought to himself, "Isn't this guy's throat going to get burnt? This is not a temple. It's clearly a black market establishment." Gazing at this scene, Chuenzi couldn't help but feel puzzled. Is the abbot here hazen? It is to fatten a living person. Then cast a spell to strengthen its muscles and blood vessels. A living being is created to resemble a living Buddha. In contemplation, the little monk has finished feeding the living Buddha, and as a result, I broke into a sweat. Then they carried the buckets. Pull off the blanket. Let the living Buddha continue to enjoy the little nun. Just as they were about to turn and leave, two red-eyed green snakes suddenly wrapped around the necks of the two people, only to see the snake open its bloody maw, facing the young monk. The young novice was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Chuenzi seized the python, immediately thought of Rocky. Just thinking about it. It really is Rocky revealing his face. Entered from the back hall. When Chuenzi first met Luoki, filled with joy in my heart, Luoki helped him tear off the mask, revealing one's true self. He has already recorded everything that just happened. We just need a few more witnesses now. He turned around and questioned the two little monks regarding the matter of Huyen Tongfo. Let them tell the truth, otherwise they will be hanged alive today. The young monk was filled with terror. Immediately confess the truth. This fire eye is fundamentally made by a living person. There is a Lotus Sutra in this temple. The content inside is actually a secret formula for practicing spells. This spell is called the copper, gold, and iron bone curse. Can turn a person's flesh into steel-like hardness. After the flesh of the waiting person became stiff, just use lard dough soup to enhance its rich flavor. Then the body is coated with crystal gel. Close the pores to prevent sweating. Add another layer of gold dust. This is the origin of the fire-eyed Buddha. Rocky then asked again, "What does the nun from the neighboring Qingshuian have to do with this? Why do we send a young nun to Qingshan Temple every 7 years?" The young novice monk's face was turning purple from the choking, but still insisted on explaining that "these little nuns that have been sent here, it's all for the purpose of providing the original essence to the same Buddha. To cultivate secret arts, one must gather yin to supplement yang. Otherwise, the whole person will turn into a lump of wood. Every 7 years is a period of cultivation, and those bodies of the nuns who had their yin and yang drained. I heard it's all buried in the nunnery's vegetable garden. The truth about the so-called fiery eyes and the Buddha is revealed. The Hazen family relies on the Qingshan Temple as their foundation, using counterfeit Buddha statues to deceitfully swindle the offerings of worshippers. It even takes lives. The words of the young monk, Rocky, all fell down. Then Chuenzi and Luoki left this disgusting place, told the police about this matter, Afterward, Wu Jingyuan brought people to arrest Master Hazen, the abbot of Qingshan Temple, still in the back garden of Qingshuian, dug out a large purple clay urn filled with human bones and corpses. Wu Jingyuan decided to find the rightful owner here. It was Master Tai from Qingshuian. The teacher is over 80 years old, long past the days of flickering candles. Upon seeing Wu Jingyuan, he repeatedly chanted Amitabha. The Western-style outfit was completely unaware. The resentful Wu Jingyuan saw this person. He scolded him as an old witch. Tell him to stop pretending. Honestly follow the police back for the investigation. The master couldn't fit it in any more. Yet they began to look full of sorrow. Suddenly, he stretched his neck sharply. In an instant, their expression turned fierce. Stick out a long tongue, directly rushing towards Wu Jingyuan. Do you know fateful man? The cultivator first experiences an elongation of the neck. Then the soul entered the bird's body. Finally, the head can be detached, with ears as wings, shuttling through the world with the night. This old witch is practicing such dark sorcery. But a long whip flew in and instantly wrapped around her neck. The one who acted was Master Lio. The old witch couldn't even move an inch. The whip emitted a crimson glow. Immediately tighten it by 3 points. The old witch could only surrender. Reluctantly, I looked at Master Lio. Even more terrifying is, this old hag is actually one of the original instigators of the fire eyes and Buddha. The dozens of skulls excavated from Qingshan Temple. They are all little nuns drained of their original essence by the fire-eyed Buddha. To outsiders, the old witch is a revered monk of Qingshuian, but she is actually the abbot of Qingshan Temple. Master Hazen's grandmother, Yuo Kai and Chuenzai were immediately startled. Wu Jingyuan said at this point. The tone became extremely angry. Because of the evil technique of Huayan and Buddha, it was during the time of Hai Sen's grandfather, Zaya Nanyang, that he learned this. In that flourishing land of Buddhism in Southeast Asia, long ago, there was a demon who made a fortune with this big face. After the old man completed his studies, he returned to his homeland to establish Qingshan Temple. What is even more frustrating is, a few years later, the Japan-Qinghua War broke out. The old man actually used the name of the living Buddha to climb up to the Japanese army. Then, the old man encountered the old witch who was a military discipline. The two are secretly having an affair. 2 generations of bloodline were born. But the old witch and the old man, this couple, but they are pretending to be monks from Gaodiu Dao. For decades, not a single flaw has been revealed. Even Hazen doesn't know about the old witch at Seisui-en. It's my own grandmother. At this point, Wu Jingyuan also calmed down. Xuanzi curiously asked how the fire-eyed Buddha was dealt with. Wu Jingyuan's expression was determined. Master Lio said he can only rely on the Western couple to prolong his life. This wicked sorcery is against nature. No one would help him continue. He could only gradually become as stiff as iron. In the end, it was a tragic death. Speak. Wu Jingyuan stood up and left. Rocky let out a sigh of relief. To lure out these wicked thieves. I haven't had a good night's sleep during this time. Kay stared gloomily at Liuoqi. Are you and Jinxian in cahoots? Rock glanced at Chuenzi and said, Nonsense. Otherwise, where would he get the drug and the mask? As soon as the words fell, Chuenzi immediately roared. You all actually teamed up to trick me so badly. Are you trying to keep me in the dark? Liuoqi insisted tirelessly. You got 2 things wrong. Chuenzi was suddenly startled. It turned out that Master Lio's deduction was the same as the fire eye of the Buddha. The method of the Western couple is to gather silver to replenish yang. So Jinxian must not take any risks. Additionally, Rocky is a master of the Taoist sect. He can't pretend to be a little girl like that young one. A gaze filled with fear. Then Rocky brought up the second matter. You are Master Lio's apprentice. Help the master relieve worries and solve problems. Why should I, an outsider, take the risk? Chuanzi was instantly speechless. At that moment, Master Lio pushed the door open. He said casually, "Get ready. Tonight we're going to catch some mice." Rocky was taken aback. "Has the golden rat been found?" Master Lio regretfully said, "I met him at night. They also exchanged blows. It's indeed a tough idea. So we still need to prepare two things to restrain the mice. Let Chuenzi go to the Eastern market. I need two butcher's cleavers. The older the year, the better." Qi Chuenzi just ran out of the store. Just then Master Lio called out to him, "Just one more thing. Things you can't get even if you have money." Chuenzi confidently gave a thumbs up. Getting difficult things done is true skill. "Uncle Lio, what are you saying?" Master Lio said with a serious expression, "You need to obtain the girl's essence. The more, the better." Chuenzi immediately sweated profusely and rolled his eyes. "It turns out this thing has the effect of dispelling evil. Better than black dog blood. Last night, Master Lio was not prepared with essence blood. Couldn't capture the rat gold in one go. Then Master Lio said, 'Among us three, you're the only one with a girlfriend, right?' Lio Shifu has gone back inside." Chuenzi quickly called his girlfriend. The two then agreed to meet at school. However, unexpectedly, Chuenzi just arrived at school. "I found someone was bothering my girlfriend." Chuenzi was instantly enraged, veins popping. He rushed over and threw a punch. The man was beaten until he spat blood. The girlfriend was initially surprised, but the next moment was filled with surprise. Suddenly threw herself into his arms and shouted, "Hubby, you're amazing!" What made Chuenzi even more embarrassed was, "My girlfriend unexpectedly dragged me to the hotel." Clearly moved by her boyfriend's heroic rescue, after arriving at the hotel, my girlfriend pushed Dover, suddenly pounced on it. With a thunderous roar, the bed actually collapsed. Chuenzi, in his anger, "Suddenly I felt something was off with the sensation in my hand." Chuenzi had a bad feeling. "This can't be a person down here, right? Speak up." Chuenzi lifted the blanket, but saw a body with hands and feet bound by wire around the waist. The female corpse that was brutally murdered appeared before me. Couple checks into a hotel room. Unexpectedly discovered a female corpse under the bed. The female corpse was covered in wet stains. Ropes binding the hands and feet, leaving behind streaks of blood. It looks very scary. The girlfriend was terrified upon seeing this. Suddenly, a shrill scream echoed throughout the entire hotel. 10 minutes later, the police arrived at the scene. The discovery of the body by Chuenzi and his girlfriend Bebe, taken aside for questioning. The officer in charge of this case is none other than my old acquaintance, Officer Wu. Upon seeing Chuenzi, Officer Wu had a displeased look on his face. Since he met Chuenzi and Master Lio, the cases I'm taking on are increasing more and more. Apart from a case involving Deaki, the other cases are all murder cases. The victim has a baby. Old man. There are also nuns. The case has a solitary individual. Multiple people. There are also interconnected ones. Another case of brutal murder has emerged. Chuenzi felt embarrassed upon hearing this. But Officer Wu was not joking. This case is extremely serious. The victim was covered in bruises all over. All of his teeth were pulled out. Additionally, the killer also attacked his chest and inner thighs. These four areas have the thinnest and most sensitive skin. Karma will catch up with you. The level of cruelty is apparent. The reason for choosing these four places to engrave: highly likely to be the murderer, want to torment and abuse the victim to the fullest extent. It is clear that this killer is a complete psychopath. Xuanzi and Bebe were all shocked upon hearing this. To comfort my girlfriend, Xuanzi promised to wait until the work was done to give his statement. Just send Bebe home. But Bebe dejectedly refused. After the testimony was recorded, Bebe hurriedly left, not even glancing at the string. Xuanzi felt that this time he was in,